Well, what's good, authors? Did you miss us? It's been a week and we have missed you terribly. It's so good to be back hosting another NaNoWriMo writing sprint. In case you're wondering why it's your girl starting us off, yes, you are right. SD got a 3-year contract with Victoria's Secret Lingerie. He ditched us and is now in Milan with Kendall Jenner, killing it on the runway. And this is an apparition you're looking at right now to fill the space. But we do have some exciting news. We do have a new coach to introduce. The Manuscripts family has been blessed by the presence of an incredible historical fiction author, Vincent Cassiani, who published with us in August 2021 an incredible book about Spanish conquistadors. It's called Iberian Claims. So, Vincent, super excited to have you here with us. Say hi to your NaNoWriMo sprinters.
Hey, everybody. I'm super excited to be here for the first time, and hopefully there are more to come if I don't mess up.
No. I mean, this is our 1 hour to mess up, to be a mess. So you're good.
Good. I'm into that.
Right on. Yeah, so we are halfway through NaNoWriMo, guys. The growing pains are real. We get it, but we are here to give all the support we can. Don't hesitate to comment. The chat is open for questions. Ask for feedback. This my old Justin Bieber merge jumper, all valid input. The idea is that you should have about 25,000 word count ready. However, it is not a rule of thumb. Last week, we spoke about being an episodic writer and how you can absolutely catch up with your goals. As long as you listen to your writing needs, your body will tell you when it wants to write. It's like going to the bathroom. Doesn't really matter. When you gotta go, you gotta go. And that's what it feels like to be a writer. You know, we got to do what we got to do. So in the spirit of maximizing your confidence, we are going to put our coaches here on the spot and have them share a little bit about the pressure they felt regarding their respective situations around writing their books. So, Emily, we have a question for you for $10,000. Not really, but wouldn't that be nice? You can phone a friend. So
good to know.
Our question for you, girl, is: did the expectations of your fans for the second book hinder you from writing? If so, how did you keep on writing?
This is a really great question. I think I've said this before, but you would think that after you publish the first book, like the second, third, however many you're writing after that would be easier each time you start again. But at least in my experience, and it looks like Stephen has come to that conclusion too, it actually feels a lot harder. At least initially, when you are right there about to start again, just because exactly like you said, you do feel like you have some sort of expectation to uphold, or some sort of like invisible line that you feel like you have to reach again. And I would say even for me and for the rest of us who are writing series, there's almost kind of this added, like in the fact that like each book has to be stronger than the last. Each book has to function by itself. But each book also has to function with all the others in the series. So it can definitely be an interesting thing to navigate. I definitely struggle with feeling like there are either expectations that I'm putting on myself or expectations that I think others are putting on me. And it can definitely be a struggle to kind of get over that hump of my own expectations or other people's expectations. But usually the thing that kind of helps me is remembering that this process is supposed to be fun. Yes, it's stressful, it's crazy. It runs you through pretty much the whole spectrum of human emotion, sometimes daily. But at the end of the day, each of us writes because we enjoy it and because the stories inside of our head demand to be told. I think what kind of helps me a lot of the time too is to have some sort of goal behind why I'm writing. And so for me, I strive to share the stories of women in the past and encourage women today to kind of step into and own the narrative of their individual stories. So if I can push past my own expectations that I feel like other people have on me, and just keep coming back to this kind of central like guiding goal, it's usually enough to keep me motivated and keep me writing.
That is amazing. I love that. I think the inspiration is what hinders us the most because we cannot always find it. So in terms of a female historical figure that inspires you the most, who do you look up to the most?
I have to pick one.
Give us top 3.
Well, I specifically am super fascinated by female espionage. So anyone from like Elizabeth Van Lew to Mary Elizabeth Bowser, Vera Atkins. Hopefully those names spark something in you. If you don't, they are. Please go look because they're incredible.
Of course, femme fatales. Of course, right on. Thank you so much for that input, Emily. Stephen, we'll move on to your question because this is something that I think many writers who are joining NaNoWriMo for the first time struggle with big time. And that is, the first draft is always garbage. How do you reconcile with that to keep writing anyway? Because we try to keep writing.
Oh, such garbage. Yeah, I think so. Like, for instance, right now I'm in the process of writing, my short story. And it is a dumpster fire in this first draft. And the thing that I have to remember is that this is not the final draft that's actually going to be published. The whole point of a first draft is getting and regurgitating all of the words in your head onto paper, proverbial paper. Like, it is just to get it out, because if you just sit there and you're trying to mull it over in your head over and over and over and over again, you don't actually make progress. Get the first draft done. I'm learning to let some scenes remain unfinished because I have to move on to the next chapter. Otherwise, my brain is literally going to just go, and it won't be good for anybody, because then people get mad at me for not finishing book 2 because my brain is imploded. So as you guys are working on your first draft, understand that it's okay that it's not the best. Because here's the thing. I make fun of my own writing saying it's a dumpster fire of garbage. It's not. I don't actually believe it's garbage. In comparison to my finished work, yeah, it is garbage because it's not structured yet. It hasn't taken its full shape yet. So as authors, we don't write garbage unless it's 50 Shades, and that's just a whole dump, of words that should never have existed.
Staten Island dump, you mean?
Yeah, Staten Island dump, like stinkiest dump there was. That is both Twilight and 50 Shades, if we're being honest. That aside, understand that, like, hey, this first draft, it's not my best work. It's not. Nobody's first draft is their best work. Your best work is once you have finished it, you've gotten it out, you're looking at it, and you're going, okay, now I know how to fix it. Now I'm going to improve it. Now I'm going to make sure that I get the right editing and the right copy editing. And I'm then going to move on to, the graphic designer for my cover design. It all comes into play, but you have to understand that it's not your best work. The simple goal is just to get it out so you have something to work with. That's my 3 cents for you guys. I broke Zara.
I think
The
your
insights
message was so profound.
Yeah, it was so profound that it just broke everything. Broke the world.
Steven, I have a question for you until she comes back.
Yeah.
Are you back, Sarah? No.
Nope.
So
Playing possum right now.
with a series. Oh, are you back?
Yes, I'm so sorry.
Right.
We are having some technical difficulties on my end. So, oh, yes, we're back. What did I miss?
Oh, nothing. Nothing at all. No. Vincent was
Okay,
going to
good.
ask a question.
It's cool. She probably has a better one than I do.
Oh my God, no, go ahead.
Okay, well,
What was your,
so the one that popped
what was your
to
question?
my head, Steven, was with a series, and you have a first draft for one book in the series, but it still has to meet certain story points for the overall grand story. How hard is it to manage that in a first draft where you're just trying to get it all out, but it still needs to serve that purpose?
So I would say that as you are looking at the overall story arc, understand that everything is in flux until you publish that book for the rest of the series. Everything, absolutely everything. Because I had book 2 basically planned, and then everything just got nuked once I actually finished book 1. Because I was basing it all off the second draft, and then it was just like just mushroom clouded it into oblivion. So, I mean, really understand that, like, yeah, this is my overall big picture of what I would like to see happen, what I think will happen. But until book 1 is published, you ultimately do not know how book 2 is going to come out, because it's influenced by that. And you could finish book 1 and be like, man, I did that on the third draft and this is amazing. And you look at book 2 like I did and you go, oh, uh-oh. And then you have to redo the entire outline, which may or may not
Oh my
take you like
God.
4 months just to get the outline done.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that would be my my tidbit there, is just that understand that everything's in flux and it's a living, breathing document until that other one is published.
Gotcha.
Yeah, thank you so much for thank you so much for saying that. I think that many authors underestimate the feeling, like when you get something done. Oh gosh, it feels so good. Like when you vacuum your apartment, even though you skip some corners, it still feels so good that you cleaned your apartment. So definitely, guys, get it done. And yeah, before we jump into our first writing sprint, I wanted to bring up and welcome Amy. Amy L. Wright is a romance author. Welcome, Amy. Please do drop in the chat what your book is about. We would love to know, especially me, because I write books with heavy romance subplots. So I am excited. And yeah, shall we do it? Let's jump into the first writing sprint. Are you guys ready? Awesome, awesome. Let's do it. Steven, do we have like a banner for that, or is this one? Is that it? Do we have a clock or something?
It's through share screen. I'd say for today we'll just roll with
Yeah.
writing. We'll just do the banner for today.
Yeah, this is yeah, sure. Let's do this. 50 minutes on the clock.
That's 15. Hands up.
Yup. How are we feeling? Are y'all dead? Is it just me, or are the mental sprints worse than the actual physical sprints? Like if you're going out for a jog and you're not half as exhausted as opposed to writing. And your writing is just, oh God, it's a thing. Yeah. Oh, is my voice still, can you guys hear me? For some reason my Wi-Fi is just pieced out. Yeah?
You
Okay.
sound like one of the characters from Star Wars, which is kind of fun. So
And you are a character from Star Wars, so Jesus
it's
Christ.
good times.
Yeah, I apologize. Yeah. It's a thing. So, how many words have we written, guys? Who wants to go first? Emily, how many? Tell us.
205.
Oh
Good.
God, it's spreading. Emily's the same.
Shoot. Did you hear what I said?
I can hear you. Vincent, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so
Oh,
it's
he's the
just
same
you,
too.
Steven.
It's
So
spreading.
bugger off. Please stop ruining our live stream. All right. Vincent, how many words have you written?
Next time, I'll do it on a document with a word count. I did it on a piece of paper.
Oh.
So.
Oh, gotcha. So at least tell us what are you working on?
It was a bunch of story notes for short stories. Trying to put together a short story compendium, so to speak.
Oh my God, that's wonderful. Jesus Christ, Kyra's writing technique, writing by hand, is spreading. It's contagious. She spread it to all of us. Oh my God. Well, however, I wanted to, before we jump into another a question that we have for Vincent, I wanted to pull up Amy's question, because this is just so true. So, is it just me, or is the first few sentences of a book the hardest? Amy, it's not just you.
No.
Who wants to answer this question? Who has good input?
It's the first.
Oh, go for it, Emily.
The first and the last, at least for me. Give me like the middle section of my story like all day long, but figuring out how to start it in the right spot and like where exactly it needs to end is really hard. So that's just my thoughts and opinions.
Yeah, because you can start every story with once upon a time, and you do really need to captivate a reader. So it needs to be something monumental. Vincent, new kid on the block, what's your input?
Yeah, I'm thinking about books that I like, and the only opening I even remember is the cliche, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And I know that the other books I like have good hooks, I just don't remember them. So maybe it is something where it's easy to get hung up on making the best first sentence imaginable that's going to go down in the pages of history. But I think as long as it serves the story and makes sense and still hooks, it's okay to not have the ideal sentence that's out of place but perfect. You know, it's better to be in the context of the rest of the book.
Are you guys leaning towards an opener that feels more positive? Something like that June summer was the best whatever of my life, or everything was chaos. So which one are you leaning more towards?
I usually go for everything is chaos.
Yeah. I thought so.
Well,
Emily, which one is it for you?
Yeah. Well, Crimson Time initially is like everything's great, and then not by the end of the prologue. But this like one that I'm actually working on right now, this high fantasy or whatever it's gonna end up looking like. It's like
no spoilers.
We're starting with all the chaos. Yeah. She like wakes up from a dream that she's drowning. So like we're right in the fire right there.
Dark. Oh my God. Who would ever, I mean, I would never say that Emily, such an angel, would open a book on, oh well, everything's on fire. It's just, yeah, the power of writing. Vincent, how about for you? More positive or negative connotations in terms of opening, an opening line?
Yeah, for my book for Iberian Claim, it opened negative because the opening loops back to the ending of the book. And so the book's ending, so kind of spoiler alert, is more bitter. And so he's starting out speaking more from a bitter place, but then he takes you back to this idealistic, opening position as a character that's a little bit sweeter. So probably more like chaos, I would say.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, Amy says, where are we with the comments? Here we go. Amy says, I have such weird openings. we feel that. So violent. We feel you. And we love it. You were probably
We are your
vibe
people,
with
Amy.
Steven. Yeah. You
Yes.
are probably his person. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Amy, if you feel comfortable with sharing whatever you have written so far, drop in chat. We would love to give you some feedback if you would like to, and just, yeah, revel in our fellow authors' writing. But before we jump into another writing sprint, I actually have a question for our new resident coach, and that is something that can definitely hinder you from writing if you're in the middle of it. And that is, research for a book will only let you go so far. So how do you navigate writing when there is a glaring gap in the information available to you? Vincent, historical fiction author. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So like you said, I wrote fiction with my last book, and research serves a different purpose in fiction and nonfiction because there are just different priorities. So kind of a gap in research for fiction is almost a creative opportunity, really, because the first thing you're serving is the story and the character arcs. And then beneath that is the overall message. And then it's the authenticity. And as long as there aren't too many gaps that your book gets derailed and there are too many decisions that you're making that makes it feel inauthentic, that can be a great opportunity to better serve your story and your characters, so you can fill those moments where, oh, we don't know what happened in this time in history, or there isn't that much research on this scientific topic. It could be anything depending on your genre, but you can fill it with something that better serves the main story. For nonfiction, it's almost like those priorities are completely reversed, because at the top, you need your book to be truthful and accurate, and then you have a larger point you're serving, and then the storytelling, the drawing people in, those fun aspects and anecdotes are third, because they serve those other two larger goals. So a gap in research is really an opportunity to either structurally avoid having to talk about that specific topic, or you could give a half answer that only feeds on what you know, or you could just come out there and say, we don't know at this time, or I don't know at this time, in a more eloquent way in the book, and open it up that, hey, there is this gap in research. So it is a bit different, but I would almost think of them as opposites for fiction and nonfiction of how you handle this specific situation.
Oh, my heart. That's such great advice. I'm a historian, and I read a lot of historical fiction. So, like, answer this one follow-up question just for my sake, even though no one else cares probably. So, Philippa Gregory, a known historian, she has a PhD in, I want to say 18th, 19th century England. I'm not sure if it's 17 and 18 or 18/19th century England, but surprisingly, she writes a lot about Tudor England, which is 16th century. And there are these, like, people who know Tudor England almost call it like pure fiction. Some of the stuff that she writes from that period, from that era. So how do you feel about her? What do you think about that?
I'm in honestly no position to judge her, because by any academic standard, I am no historian. I am an international business major, and my book was written over the course of my adolescence. And so I'm no expert in the educational field. I just did a lot of research, and I really loved the story. And there were times where I found myself too married, I could say, to the research, and it derailed the story and the character arcs. I had to go back and say, oh, this interesting piece of history, I have to ignore that little piece of it so that my book even makes sense or is interesting or, actually is satisfying for a reader. And so I imagine being somebody who's an expert in a topic, it's probably torture to go against anything that she knows to be truthful. And so if there's something that she's a little bit less of an expert on, but is interested in, it might be a much better playing field for her to write in, at least fiction. So I can totally understand that.
Oh, that is surprisingly very compassionate, and I appreciate that, because a lot of people judge her for it, but I feel like exactly that research, if you have that amount of research in your head, it can stifle your creativity. But I want to hear from Emily on this one, our resident historian who actually has a lot of background info. Emily, go. Philippa Gregory, that whole thing. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, as you were talking, I kept kind of going back into my head of the fact that you kind of just have to leverage the expectations of your readers. Yes, I am a historian, but that doesn't mean that I have to solely write 100% factual, nonfiction, boring books.
Oh, the shade!
I mean, you can if you want to. I don't know, maybe I will at some point, but like, it's finding, this is something that I had to like leverage myself as well, since what I'm currently writing is historical fantasy. So there's the elements of true history, and then there's the elements that I creatively add to the story. But I'm very clear in like the communication of like my branding and who I am and everything like that, that with the historical fantasy, the expectations of my readers is that what I'm telling them is not 110% true.
Oh, gotcha. So you're very transparent.
Yes, I'm transparent with that, and the fact that when I do break history, it's purposeful for the intention of my plot rather than just to break history because I can.
Ooh, I love that. Someone put that on a mug and let's start selling that. That's a great quote. Wonderful. Well, we have some just amazing comment from Amy, so I'm going to pull it up if you're okay with that, Amy. Stephen, give us some pro tip advice from an author coach standpoint on this sentence. Ash spewed from the sky like rain. What do you think about that? What advice would you give Amy?
I mean, in terms of, there's very little context with it, but in terms of like, for an opening line,
yes,
just shut up and take my money now. Like, just being honest here, just shut up and take my money. Like, if your book opens up with Ash spewed from the sky like rain, I'm be like, man, it's going down for real right now, and I'm here for it. Like, so
oh my God.
I think one of the things with opening lines is that we tend to overthink opening lines. And one of my author friends, her first novel starts with Sandy yawned. And for an opening line, yeah, that's the opening line. And I was just like, why did Sandy yawn? Was she bored? Is she disinterested? What is happening in Sandy's life? Is she just so cynical that she just doesn't, and she is, like, she doesn't give a crap about anybody. But it was super fascinating, and it immediately kind of it grabbed my attention. Here's the thing that an opening line should do regardless, is it should pique the reader's interest. That's it. That's all you have to do, is that if you just pique a reader's interest, you will immediately have buy-in. Or at least you've earned the right to get their buy-in and potentially their money. Because that's ultimately like what we're trying to do.
Yeah, that is great
Amy's
advice.
got another question.
Oh, she does? Okay, let's see.
Yeah.
Let's pull it up. Pull it up. This is fun. So Amy asks, do you think a prologue for a book is neat? Actually, I can answer that one. It depends on how much you want to tease your reader. Sometimes it's a good thing if you're, especially if you're writing mystery and your reader is learning stuff along the way with your characters, then it's a good thing to give them some context to keep them interested. Because if they don't know what's going on for a very long time, it can get boring and they can just shut the book and never open it again. But if there is that prologue that is maybe outside of your main character's knowledge, and you give the reader this feeling, oh, I'm smarter than the main character, I kind of know what's going on, so I have more information but not enough to not keep reading, if that makes sense. So that would be my input, because my second novel, like Sunset in La Paz, is kind of a mystery. So I do have a prologue, and it's very intentional. I'm being very intentional with the information that I'm revealing. So yeah, that would be my input. Anyone else? Thoughts?
This is something that I struggled with, because when I wrote Crimson Time, I have an inciting incident that I couldn't decide if I needed to tease my readers out in the actual story or just kind of give it to them up front. It depends on the story that you're telling, which I know doesn't sound like sound advice, but it really does. For me, I kind of had to think through what that following chapter, so chapter 1 of the actual story, was going to be, and if it was necessary to have a prologue to kind of set that up. So I decided that I did need a prologue for this inciting incident, because it's the inciting incident of the entire series. And one of the characters that you meet in chapter 1, their relationship with the main character looks completely different from the prologue to chapter 1. And I felt like you needed to see that so that you didn't just automatically completely hate that character and have no sympathy whatsoever for them. A lot of people still don't, but that's okay. But I felt like it was important to see what that relationship looked like before it went to crap.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting. I mean, Amy says that in her experience, most people skip over the prologue. Is that true? Why do people keep saying that? That's not true. Vincent, what do you think? Is that true in your experience?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I don't personally. I don't know.
But I do hear that a lot, that people do. I feel like I'm missing part of the story. I know some people won't read the prologue and some people won't read the epilogue. But I personally feel like I'm missing an integral piece of the story if I'm not. I mean, I'm the weirdo that like reads the author's note and like the history notes and everything else like that at the end of a book too. So maybe that's just me, but I enjoy reading like the epilogue and the prologue.
Same.
So
like if I feel the need to, yeah, go ahead, Stephen. Yeah, go ahead.
In my experience with this, what tends to happen and why people will skip the prologue is because it is just an info dump. And that's the main problem, is authors being like, oh, they need to know everything about my world, and so I have to tell it to them in a prologue so they know how everything works. Ah! And then they just plop it down in the book, and then the reader's just like, oh, or not. And that's when it's done poorly. Like a prologue, when done well, because like I have a prologue at the beginning of book 2. It should tease the main book.
Yes.
That's what it should do. It should be integral to the main part of the book. If it is just simply world dumping and like if you're going like full like biblical genealogy on somebody in a prologue and you have like 15 bagats, like that's not going to fly in a prologue. It should flow smoothly. It should be some
involve
additional
some kind of action, right? Make it a little bit
exactly.
more
It should be
actionable.
a snippet.
Yes.
It should be
yes,
like I would recommend 1,000 to 1,500 words. it should be shorter than an actual chapter,
Oh,
but
yes.
longer than a blurb.
Yes. Yes.
Put your
Totally.
prologue somewhere in there.
Yes. Oh my God. Such good conversation. Well, let's jump into our second writing sprint, and we will be back when, Stephen? Tell us.
5:05.
That's 8:05 for the East Coasters.
7:05 for
Oh,
Central.
Let's do it. Oh my God. Jesus Christ.
Cover our bases.
These time zones are going to kill me one day. Okay, let's do it. All right, and we're back. How are we feeling? Exhausted?
177.
177. Emily?
173.
Oh,
Great,
yeah.
Vincent.
I
You
got
don't know.
200 this time.
Ooh, that is amazing. Well, by the way, if you guys didn't notice what's going on in the chat, Amy is just going absolute bonkers with her excerpts, and we are loving it. It's amazing. Look at this one. The woman's name was Margaret, the child's name undecided, the devil's offspring, people whisper as they depart. For you see, out of the little girl's forehead sprouted elkhorns, her eyes a bright yellow. Thoughts? Are we completely in love, or
I'm not reading it at bedtime. I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
it's amazing. Thank you so much, Amy, for sharing all of that. And just I wanted to thank you for your transparency and for the fact that you joined us and participated. It was wonderful. We have gone a little bit overboard with our time. However, please, guys, join us for the next live stream next Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And hold on. hold on, it's gonna be okay. NaNoWriMo is still in progress. It's not the end of NaNoWriMo. It's not the end of life by any means. So please, if you enjoyed this live stream, do subscribe so that you are made aware of when the next live stream is happening. And yeah, thank you, Amy. You are great as well. Follow us on social media. They're in the description box below. We would love to connect with you, give free advice. We're author coaches. That's what we're here for. And yeah, I guess see you next Monday.
Yes.